So I'm really, really excited right now because I have someone that I've admired from afar for like, I want to say like maybe close to 14, 15 years. It's been a while.
Wow.
Um, but now I have the opportunity to interview him and I'm super excited. So please welcome Hamilton Hardin. Thank you so much for joining me, bro. Thanks for making the
Man,
time.
thanks for having me. I don't take it for granted, man. I don't take it for granted at all.
Dude, yeah, this is incredible. And I know I did the build up of like this is one of the best musicians in the world right now, but I
Oh, man.
I mean every word of that, like legit. So I want to start. I know everyone always starts musically at the beginning, but
Sure.
I have to understand how you got to where you are now. I just need to know. So
Yeah.
what was your musical like upbringing like? I mean, I know you would have grown up in church, but like what was your like musical upbringing like? Like what was, what was your journey? Did you start off on a particular instrument? Like how did it happen?
Yeah, when I was about 4 or 5, it was both piano and drums. I was more serious about the drums at the time. And so I wanted to play drums at my church. By the time I was 7, I felt like I was ready. But there were like 9 other drummers at the church.
Oh man.
And so, and the church was really good about putting a rotation so everybody got to play. But the younger kids, we only got like Sunday nights. So
Right.
like every third Sunday night was my time. I had my sticks ready,
You was
and then
ready.
I was also ready for when some of the other drummers might have been late for some reason. If you were if you were 10 seconds late, I was hopping up on the drum set. But yeah, but because I didn't feel like I was playing enough, I was like, I want to play something because I just like music. So I started playing keyboard at the church. Um, and they were just really gracious because I didn't sound good. But they were, they gave young people a chance, which it's a different thing nowadays. With the cameras and the strobe lights and the big screens, like you want to make church this thing, but the young kids don't really get a chance to grow and develop. So they did a good job of that. And by the time I was 12, the minister of music at my church, her husband became a pastor at another church. So she obviously left with him to start that church. And so at 12, I was a music director and minister of music at the church. And so
Wow.
that's where I started then, and then in 6th grade, I started alto saxophone as like a band instrument,
Yeah.
squeaking and around the house. And my sister said, "Will you please put that thing away and just stick to piano?" And of course, when your siblings tell you something, you got that whole "I'm gonna show you one day."
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I just got serious about the saxophone, and I tell people all the time how I view it. Instruments are like family. So because I played saxophone, flute is very closely related.
Mm,
So it's in the same family. Clarinet is a similar thing. So the woodwind instruments are sort of similar. And then also in like early high school, I started messing with the trumpet. A
mm,
buddy of mine let me borrow his one of his like old trumpets, and so I took that
yeah.
home, started learning that. And then because I play trumpet, it's a valve instrument. So I also play like euphonium or tuba.
Ah,
Those are all, they're all, it's like the same
yeah,
mechanics, just
yeah,
a little
yeah.
different what they call embouchure. And
Okay.
then guitar and bass are sort of closely related. I think piano and drums are their own separate thing, but I
Mm.
sort of learned instruments in family. So like when you learn one, it can open you up to other things in families. And so yeah, other kids were playing hoops. I was playing instruments. That was my thing growing up.
Right, right, right. So you were just like while everyone out there is on the court just doing,
Yep.
you're just in the house just like learning
But
these
but
families.
but don't get it twisted. I will still give it to you on the court too. No, no, I won't. No, I
You're
won't. I'm
Steph
joking.
Curry somebody like you're yeah,
Yeah, I just
yeah.
talk a lot of trash. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. I got it. I got it. Okay, that's really. I didn't know you played euphonium and tubas. So you kind of think about them as families of instruments. Did you ever
Yep.
get into strings at all, or did you?
So, ironically, my wife is a viola and violinist.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't. I mean, I play upright bass obviously because it's closely related. but really I don't deal with that family of instruments. I arrange for them,
Right.
um, but and I told her one day, um, I really want to learn cello. So that's on my
Okay.
list of things to do, maybe in the twilight years of my life. I don't know,
Got
but yeah,
you. Got you.
I love the voice of cello, but no, I don't really do with the that family of instruments.
Okay, got you. What would you say is the instrument you're most like comfortable with? Like you sit with and you're like, okay, that's you know, that's where I'm
Between
calm.
Yeah, I think between saxophone, because that's where I got my degree on, and then
Mm,
um honestly, the rhythm section instruments, because I tour and have toured on, bass, drums, and piano a whole lot. I'm sort of comfortable on those. Um, yes, it's funny. I do a lot of records on uh like brass instruments,
yeah.
but that's actually one of my least comfortable things. But I've made more money on playing brass on people's records
That's
than
interesting.
you know. But I mean, I guess the point is, I try not to look at any instrument as like a secondary. I try to approach them all um, as if they're my main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So you mentioned your degree. So where did you study? Like so you obviously you went through school, whatever, but then did you
Mhm.
then you went to university to study music? Where did you do that?
Yeah. When I graduated from high school, I went to the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, and I got a degree in jazz studies on tenor saxophone. And the funny thing, I I picked tenor saxophone because it's easier to read than piano. Piano is like, five notes on one beat, and it's hard. This is harder to sight read.
Yeah.
And so saxophone was like one line. It was just easier for me, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
Do you know what I really relate to that as a pianist? Like I because I did my grades, but it's the where I always fell down was the sight reading because
Yeah.
it's when I first learned to play, they thought I was sight reading, but I was playing it back. And it's
Yes.
only like as I got up the grades, they realized, oh no, you're bad, you're bad
Yep.
at this.
Yep. Yeah, the funny thing, when I was in high school, I was my freshman year of high school, I was second to last chair in the fourth band. And the main reason for that was my sight every time I did a sight reading test, it was a struggle because, in church we learn auditorily.
Yeah,
And so so we're not as strong as those who learned maybe by sight reading, but I'm grateful because that's something I got up and it helped my writing, especially at this point. Because right now in my career, I don't read a whole lot. I don't have a lot of gigs that have me reading,
yeah,
but I arrange for strings and orchestra, and you know, it's easier to write when you have an understanding of how musicians process the reading.
sure. Okay, no,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I guess my so talking about gigging, obviously we're gonna get to your music in a
Mhm.
second because I have a lot of questions. But in terms of like who you play for, like so you I mean you go out on the road and stuff, like what are the kind of artists that you played for that people might not know, or like records that you've been on that like, you know,
Oh.
or who's the kind of people that you're playing with? Is it mostly jazz? Is it mostly gospel? Is it kind of a mix of both?
It's mostly jazz and smooth jazz. Like, I've actually come off the road as of end of 2024, just to focus on finishing this record.
Right.
Because the hardest thing is like carving out time to work
Yeah.
on your own stuff when your own stuff may not be what's paying your bills. So, um, I had to, I was doing a lot of, other stuff. Artists I've toured on the road, that's easier to say because I've recorded on so many records. Sometimes it's hard to um, remember. I can tell you names. I can't tell you exact projects, but
Yeah.
cast that I toured with. I used to tour with Layla Hathaway,
Yeah.
um, Kirk Whalum. Was one of my favorites. Norman Brown. Um, a lot of it is like in the smooth jazz camp. Dave Koz,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
whole thing. Um, but then on the recording aspect, it's sort of really broad. Like I sort of I'll take it in genres. Like in gospel, I recorded with Yolanda Adams, Fred Hammond,
Yeah.
William McDowell. It's hard. I'm leaving out names. It's like
William McDowell is
Take
one of my
Six.
personal favorites. Oh, Take Six.
Oh,
That Take Six makes so much sense. Like, how was it working with Take Six? Because I feel like you guys, it's like a
yo.
perfect match, literally.
So, I've done more like orchestrations for Take Six. So because they were doing
Right.
shows with orchestra, and
Yeah.
so that was really cool. They brought me on recently, like in a few months ago, to be music director for some of their orchestra shows.
Yeah.
And so that was my first time working with them in person. Because when you're just scoring for an orchestra, I'm doing my stuff at home in this very room, and I'm sending it off, and they do their shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But actually going with them live, that was a little bit of a nostalgia. That was probably one of the most fanboy uh, gig experience I ever had, because
Yeah.
Take Six for me growing up, I had cassette tapes. Like for those who I feel old now when I say that. Like for those who don't know that was before CDs, or definitely before MP3s.
They don't
But
know, man. They don't know.
yeah, I feel old now. But like that was like my first exposure to a different side of gospel music,
Mm,
and the way when you have six voices singing harmonies, you hear each part of the harmony more clearly than you would like a piano player. And
yeah.
so I was really intrigued by them. And I'm gonna tell you this, to be in a room with them as they're warming up, no microphones, no auto tune, and they sound like a freaking record, dude.
Easy.
I'm telling you, it was. I think I just sat there. I almost got. I'll be honest. I almost got emotional, because it was like,
Mm,
man, these are like cats that I grew up, and they're so nice, so warm. They don't give you the whole, I'm a star,
mm.
uh, you're beneath me vibe. Super relatable people. Um, and it was just a fun gig. So I enjoyed that one. That was one of my most enjoyable gigs ever. And it was just recent. Yeah,
I can imagine. It just feels like, in terms of the mesh of the jazz and gospel, it just feels like it's such a good match, for
absolutely.
you. Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's really, yeah, this makes so much sense, like some of the artists you mentioned. So I'm gonna talk about the first time I heard of you. I don't
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember. It was just someone had sent, maybe someone, I was scrolling. This is the time, I mean, I'm still deep into YouTube. This is the times I was just trawling YouTube. And I saw this video of, like, I don't know how I got to the Smurfs, right? But
Ah,
I just I'm like, who are Full Ray Productions? Don't know what that is. I
ah.
just and I just heard this arrange, and I was like, from like the first 5 seconds, I was like, what is going on in the bass? I'm like, what is this rehab? Like, what? This is in like heaven. I'm like, what is happening? That's like one of the first videos I saw of you.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
I don't know
That's
when that was.
crazy,
Do you
man.
remember when that was? I don't remember when that was.
Ew. That had to be over 15 years ago. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 20 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
was a
was
young pup.
man. And so you were always, so was that one of the first times you decided to, like, okay, I can just, because when do you start to think, okay, I can do everything myself? I mean, you knew, but like, when did you start to actually start like putting things together yourself, like charting everything, and like, or not charting, but like
Mhm.
playing everything yourself and tracking over each other? When did you start like doing that?
That actually it started as like a budgetary thing. Like an artist would ask me to produce them, when I was, 19 or 20 or whatever. And um, some of the independent artists, the budget that they had to work with wasn't that great. And
Right.
so, well, I'm like, well, I can play keys, I could play bass, I could play, so that's how that sort of started. Um, the Smurfs video and some of those other, YouTube things, that was more from people edging me on. You should do, because I'm not like a big, I suck at content creation, and unless it's like a purposeful record, like like the Filled with Wonder just came out with, I don't have a lot of energy for that. So people are and still are pushing me to do more. Like people that are helping with marketing and stuff are helping me to try to put more of that stuff out. But I haven't really, that wasn't really like a passion of mine. It was more of just working on projects. And sometimes it's easier for me, even if it's like a great drummer, it's
Mm,
hard for me to articulate exactly what I'm looking for. And
yeah.
I found out it saved me so much emotional energy to just sit down and play it myself. Like,
Yeah.
because I know exactly what I want it to sound like.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
exactly what voicings, I know exactly what I want the bass to do. And like I said, it's no slight to any other musicians. You could be,
Sure.
you could be, Corey Henry, and I would try to tell him what I wanted, but it's my poor articulation of what I want, and it's just easier for me sometimes to just do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That makes sense. So when it comes to these arrangements, are you charting this? Is it all by ear, or do you like sketch out on a door? Like how do you like come up with like, from bar one all the way to bar
yeah,
whatever? Like are you charting? Are you ear, is it ear or is it just MIDI
yeah.
or
So it's crazy, man. So God gives us downloads. Um, Sometimes in very vivid detail, like I hear the whole song,
mm,
and it's like the intimidating thing. And I'm learning to rely on the spirit and not be so intimidated. But the intimidating thing was, I'll say, trying to, it's like pressure to, oh man, how do I get what's in here out here? So
mm,
to your point, it starts different way. I think the most common way is I'll do it in the DAW in Pro Tools first,
mhm.
and I'll lay out a click track. I'll lay out markers. Before I start anything, when I feel like God gives me something, I just grab my phone and do like a voice memo,
Yeah.
and I try to capture, everything I'm feeling. The funny thing, even if I listen to that voice memo 6 months later, I can feel the feeling that I had at the time,
Oh,
and
for
sort of,
real?
yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, I get the opposite. I hear the
Yeah.
voice and I'm like, yo, what is this? Like it
Yep.
sounds crazy. But you still
Same.
get the same. That's amazing.
I think when what you're talking about happens, that's when I know it wasn't really from God.
Right.
For that's just
So
my own
cool.
personal experience. Like
Yeah.
I'll have like this cool musical idea that I came up with, and then 24 hours later it sounds corny, and it's like, what is this? But
Yeah.
I'll tell you when it's from God, because when the
Mm,
Holy Spirit um, illuminates um, illuminates things inside of you, like the sensitivity and emotions and the inspiration. That part I think is so unforgettable that when I hear the voice memo, it brings back all of
wow.
that.
So it's like
Um,
a personal experience that you're like going back to that. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And to your point, now that you said that, I do know there are several voice memos that got deleted because I'm like, what was this? That was just me.
Yeah.
What if I did this song in seven, or what if I did this
Yeah.
song in five? Some musical idea that I try to, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I got you. So in terms of like when you're tracking by yourself, how do you get I guess I would say the responsiveness, like in terms of because or like what are you starting with? Like you just starting with a sax? Like how do you get
yeah.
it so that it's like I feel like I'm still building something without it just feeling like,
That
oh, this is just a random track by itself.
that's an excellent question. I start with things that are the most stagnant.
Mm,
So, for example, if there's like a percussion loop or something, I'll play that to a click track or program something that's maybe copy and pastable, that's stagnant, that's
yeah.
pretty. The next thing I'll do, it depends on what the song is. So if the next stagnant thing might be keys, I may I may do that, and then I may play drums on top of that. Other times, drums are probably the most solid thing to build on.
Yeah.
The funny thing, almost I would say 97% of the time, bass is last because I like to
Oh.
respond off of the drum. I will always do bass after drums because drums will lay the foundation, but how the part that the bass plays is such a pivotal role into opening up the track. That's my favorite thing to record. I love recording bass because it controls harmony and groove. And other instruments don't really do that as much. And so yeah, bass always comes last. But yeah, anything that's stagnant will be first.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I think
Yeah.
what you said about the bass, I can kind of hear it across the records. Like it always feels like you're really like whichever record, it feels like you're having fun on bass, like the whole like you.
It's by far it's my favorite. Now people ask me what my favorite instrument is. I don't have one, but my favorite instrument to record is always bass.
Right.
Bass it's just it's I mean, if you heard the fun, it's because it is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That that makes sense. So like,
yeah.
I mean, was 2014 the record you did in 2014 was Just Wanna Say Right? Is that your
Hmm.
was that your first album, or do you have projects before that, or is that your
I have one project before that that I have not put on digital format. It's called Resurrection Suite, Suite. It's more of a, it's like in the same way Filled with Wonder had like four movements.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Resurrection Suite, it's a suite. So it had, I think, four movements. But I did that when I was 19. And I think I would eventually I would like to recreate that record.
Okay.
But as a 43-year-old, I hear my 19-year-old production mistakes, and
Yeah.
and it's like, why did I do that? It was like a good idea that I ruined, and that's probably, I don't know. I may try to re-release that, but right now I want to keep that to myself.
I know
Um,
you. Okay.
but yeah, but just want to say was probably my first and current digital release. And then in 2020, I did an album called, it was an EP called Pray.
Yeah, yeah,
And, recently I just released the Filled with Wonder,
yeah,
25 songs,
yeah,
3 years in the making, a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money. But the Lord provided. I'm gonna say that because I'm not Captain Moneybags over here. So there were times midway cutting is like, how am I going to pay for this? And I'm already in it. And God
yeah.
provided the way every single time. He provides.
Amen. I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, I think one thing that's always struck me across all of your projects is how diverse it is. Even though you come from a jazz background and obviously gospel
Hmm.
as well, like songs like I think Christian Anthem is like it sounds
Hmm.
like Beatles and like Elton John. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like it's so interesting to hear like, and you'll still put like nice harmonic flavors in there, but it's still
Hmm.
like it's still staying true to the style. Do you feel like you're from like a musical background perspective, were you kind of listening to everything and then that just comes out across the whole record?
Yeah, I have. It's hard for me to listen to a full record from track 1 to 10 because I think I have musical ADD. Like
Yeah.
I have to listen to, whatever I'm streaming on, it's on shuffle, like between different artists and different
Ah,
genres. So I may go from the Beatles to Pavarotti to James Brown to John Coltrane to, it's like,
oh, you
because if
just
I listen, yeah, it's
you're everywhere.
everywhere. It's literally everywhere. And but I would say my my goal is, it's not the intent of the music to let me try how many genres I could do.
Mm,
I feel like God just downloads certain things, downloads the music to me, and I don't even at the time. I just want to be obedient. Some of the
yeah,
music I hear that he gives me, I'm like, oh, this has some commercial value. Some music, I'm like, this is sort of out there.
yeah,
Um, but I want to be faithful with what he gives, and like I said, the challenge used to be wanting to make sure I get it out the same way I'm hearing it in here. And in that process, I've learned to rely on God to do that. If He gave me the idea, He'll give me the process to do it. He'll give me the funding. Because
Yeah.
once again, there was no executive producer that was, paying me, here's, be as creative as you want. No, it was just like, but God, I hear this big string section. I hear this choir.
Mm,
And when you hire a choir, every choir member expects to get paid. Every string player expects to pay. Every engineer, every studio
mm.
expects to get paid. And I hear God was giving me an expensive sound,
He's got to pay
and
for it,
I'm
right?
and I'm looking at my wallet like, wait a minute, I don't see I don't see this where these expenses are. But God, I'm telling you, I unashamedly promote Jesus Christ. He provides every cent, and it's done now. Like I'm not owing anybody. Well, I'll give you 500 this week, and it's done. And so
Yeah,
I'm grateful to God. I'm so grateful.
that's amazing. I feel like one thing that speaking of like Jesus, I think the message is always really like very clear, and all of your
Mhm.
songs, like you have a very like strong like focus on the gospel, whether it's like and still he loves, or like all of
Mhm.
these you have like these very like strong and clear messages. Is that like when you get these downloads, do you feel like the lyrics come like at the same time almost as well, like you're and you know it's like, how do you, because you're going through so many different styles, you feel like, you know I mean, you were saying before you don't like necessarily
Mhm.
intend to do that, but are you thinking, okay, this is the best way to convey the message that I'm trying to portray in this song, or like how do you think about that?
Very good question. You're asking very good questions, man. uh, a lot of times, God gives me the song, the instrumentation, like I sonically hear it, but it's like this song is about my mercy, or this song is about my love. This song is about this aspect of my love. And then the lyrics are something that a lot of times I'll be on the plane. The airplane is like one of those times, especially if it's a longer flight. It's one of those
Mm,
times that it's uninterrupted. Um, I have no cell phone service,
mm,
so on the flight, so there's no one texting me and sort of distracting, and so a lot of times when I get settings like that, I'm able to take my time. And lyrics for me take time because I want I can tell when I write lyrics and it's like this ain't conveying the point as clearly, or it's too
mm.
convoluted. It's not. If I
Yeah,
may be saying the right things, but it's not in a palatable way to where people can digest it. It's a little too condensed. So how can I thin it out a little bit so it's saying Jesus loves you really clearly?
yeah.
you know, um, that's sort of that process. It's a longer process, but I've enjoyed it. I've actually gone back to enjoying old hymns, and the poetry that the hymn writers use, I think is so phenomenal, and I'm trying to dig into that more with current vernacular.
Mm,
So I may not use words like "thou hast" and a lot of old King James, old English, um, but the way that the words lay in some of those hymns, I'm trying to get a lot of lyrics to lay the same ways where it's conversational, and God is helping me with that.
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I'm a just nerd out for a little bit. People just excuse me. I gotta just so one thing that I noticed that you do a lot is like rehums. Like rehums are
Mhm.
like is a thing that you loved. I mean,
Yeah.
because I remember, I think, yeah, when I first heard, like, just want to say, I think the first track is "We Will Sing," right, and then we're just going different places. Like, what is your thought process? Is it just like, okay, melody note, I can go here, or do you feel like you have a process for rehum, or is it just like whatever chord just drops in your spirit, we're going there, and that's what we're doing.
It's it's a little bit of the last, and not to I don't want to make it sound so I don't know, spooky. But it is a little bit of like, even as a vocalist, which I do not claim to be a amazing vocalist, but singers who do sing know that right before you take that breath and you sing something, you hear a refrain, you hear an ornamentation, or you hear a riff that you want to sort of that's going to come out before you sing it. It's the same thing with reharmonization. I just believe that harmony speaks so strongly. Like I can sit at a piano and without saying any words, play, and with 30 seconds, whatever emotion or feeling you're gonna feel, because harmony has the ability to speak. And when you put the word of God on, or harmony on top of the word of God, or however you want to, when you match those two together the right way and they're saying the same thing. I'm not saying I do it perfectly. I believe that that's the purpose of harmony. Um, I did another podcast yesterday, and the guy he made a point that music was one of the few things that was not created on earth. Music existed before the earth was.
Absolutely.
And so angels are singing, holy, holy, holy. God is singing back. There's so much music. And when I believe that when music is put back in its original purpose, and there's nothing sinful about entertainment. There's nothing sinful. I'm not saying if you're not doing this, you're sinning. That's not what I'm saying. But the original purpose was to glorify God. And so the harmony choices, when I play certain things, and this is maybe subjective, but when I play it, it takes me somewhere emotionally while I'm playing. And I'm like, well, if I feel this, there has to be a demographic of people that hopefully feel the same way. Maybe not. I receive criticism too. Some people say they don't feel my music or whatever. It's subjective, but my subjective experience when I'm writing something, I put it on a record because when I play it, I'm feeling something. When I sing certain lyrics, like on "Sing of Your Love" at the end, I was telling somebody that song towards the end, I had to stop like 3 times and start over because I kept sobbing. Like I started crying because I started thinking about what I was saying. The lyrics were talking about how basically in eternity we're forever going to be singing about his love. Like it's not going to stop. This isn't something I'm writing a song to entertain and hopefully, hit the charts. I don't care about the charts. I'm trying to my intent. I'm not saying, once again, I don't think I do it perfectly, but my intent is to glorify God and take the listener to consider this factor about God, consider this part of God, consider this part of salvation, consider this in this musical way that you may not be able to feel from someone who's just talking behind a pulpit. Music, it works differently. And for me, this is sort of the pulpit I believe God gave me, and I want to steward it well. Do I care about how people accept it? Absolutely. Like, who doesn't
You wouldn't
want
be.
their art to be appreciated? But I've made the decision that whether people get with it or not, I want to be obedient because that's what I'm going to be accountable for. And whether my music reaches 13 million people or 13 people, if those 13 people consider giving their life to Jesus because of something I played, I believe that pleases the Father. And that's what's more important. I think I got way off your question. I just started.
No. I honestly, where you went was where I actually wanted to, because I think I was listening to something that William McDowell was saying. He was preaching like the other day, and he was talking about like awards, and he stopped going to like gospel awards just because for him he felt like it was just bringing him kind of like out of purpose, and he had focused on, you know what I'm saying, the wrong thing. And I
Yeah.
feel like when we, you know, because we have songs where people are talking about like building territory and like going out and conquer, and it feels like
Yeah.
that all then means that everybody needs to be famous. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, no, actually, God needs to be famous. Like, we need to make God's
Yes.
name famous in the earth, but we don't
Yeah.
all have the mission to go and do it everywhere. Like, that's not
No.
God's mission for all of us.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting when you said about like certain people getting it, and the people that do get it get it. For
Yeah.
me, it, like as
hmm
a consumer and as someone who like loves gospel, loves jazz, like plays both, like
Yeah.
your music speaks very much like that's the genre for me. That, and
Mm.
that's why I do my, you know, I do my premier gospel show. Like
Yeah.
it's a jazz show, so it's called Jazz Alive, and
Mm.
so it's literally like people who love jazz, who love gospel. It's
Yeah.
perfect. That's why we're playing your music, because it works.
Oh man. That's I mean that because that's a good point. You know, it's like everyone that maybe has a gift of preaching doesn't mean you should start a church.
Right.
Maybe you should do a prison ministry where you go to prisons and you preach to people, or you set out on your job or at your school or at your
Mm.
university and like be a street preacher. Like, don't think that it has to go through a certain funnel. If you're a musician and you hear things a certain way, like you know, if you hear things and you have a strong classical background, you have an affinity for that because God created you with an affinity for this sensitivity musically. Deal with that. Deal with the gospel in that form. Deal with the gospel in a straight ahead jazz form. Deal with the gospel if you listen to everything. Like I, I just like music, so it comes out in different ways. But let the gospel, like you worded it well. Let the gospel be the star. Let Jesus be the star. And I would much rather people. I don't know if this happens, but I'll say this: I would much rather people leave thinking, what do I need to do to get closer to this God, rather than, wow, who's Hamilton Hardin?
Mm.
Um, uh, yeah, my prayer is that God put, and it has been that God puts His weight on the words that are saying and all the things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to get to this latest release, this Field of Wonder, and you kind of mentioned the four track suite.
hmm
For me, my favorite, so I this is my favorite right now anyway. The
hmm
Kimberell just is just
Ah,
woo. The praises of
yeah,
God. I like woo. This
uh,
the yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
That, how did you hook up with Kim? Like what? Yeah, because that track
man.
is, yeah.
First of all, Kim is such a beautiful person to work with.
Mm,
Um, very, with all the gifting that she has, her approach to music is so humble. Like when we got together, I flew to where she is and we recorded at the studio there. And she just wanted to sit at the console, and she would just ask me questions about, okay, now what emotions do you want to um invoke here? What are you going for? She asked me. She did like a 5 minute interview before she tried to do a take. Because I mean, and
mm.
I appreciate that because she could have, with her musicality,
I'm Kim
she could have
Burrell.
just,
I'll just
yeah. And
yeah.
by the way, and she still would have killed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Because it's not like, and she sang about 4 takes, and all of them were perfect.
Mm,
And so like I came home and was just trying to piece, oh gosh, which is the best, but for her to like sit and like ask me those questions, she was really trying to get into, as a writer, like get into my head, like what is this supposed to do? And she's just I have nothing but warm things to say about Kim. I've known her maybe 10 years now,
mm,
and we talked about doing something together, and every time we're about to do it, something falls through. Like on my end, I signed with some label, and it was like an exclusivity clause where I could only work on produce for artists on that label, and so I had to change direction on that. But upon getting loose from that label and come up with this song, I was like, this is one of the perfect opportunities for us to work together. Oh, and trust and believe, I'm looking for more.
Yeah.
Because Kim is just well, I don't even need to tell you, she's just a powerhouse. She can scream and squall, but she don't need to. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
she can give you all that, but she can sing in as intimately as like right up on the microphone and sing the
Yeah.
most appropriate things. Her level of musicality, even I'll say this, I'll get off this tangent, but
No, please keep going. Please.
when I produce artists, it's a common practice to throw some level of autotune on there just to help tighten up things a little bit.
Mm.
I naturally did that for the song that Kim did, and it did not feel the same. And I loosened the autotune up to where it's not as tight, and it still didn't feel the same. I took the autotune off, and it sat perfectly, which means that Kim is functioning on a level of intelligence that even the intonation conveys certain things. If she's a little flat, it's intentional. Like,
Mm.
and that's something that's reminiscent of like some of my favorite singers like Ella Fitzgerald,
Yeah.
Nat King Cole. Those deliveries, if you were to look at where they are in the intonation, it's sharp at times, flat at times, but it's because it's doing something. As a saxophone player, I do that. Like, I play out of tune, but I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm intentionally doing it. And Kim, as a vocalist, is functioning on that level of intelligence that people just hear the riffs and runs and the vocal dexterity, which is amazing. But she can do that because she's just functioning at a different level, like
Yeah.
for real, musically.
Absolutely. And I felt like with that song, again, when I talk about those perfect like connections, like you and Take Six, but then also you and
Hmm.
Kim, it just felt like she finally, like, not finally, I mean, she's made so many incredible records, but
Yeah.
like a record where it's like the match was perfect, like the level of like crazy musicality. So she kind of
Hmm.
like at something was really pocketed because she didn't need to do a whole lot because everything's just
Yeah.
going. It was
Yeah.
like I was like, wow, this is so like interesting to hear people that like musically match. And I kind of see this orchestra of light. What is the orchestra of light? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'm glad you asked that. That's
Yeah.
I intentionally introduced that. So Orchestra of Light is something I've been working to probably to put together over 6 years.
Mm.
Um, it's essentially um, and it comprises of a rhythm section, which is drums, bass, piano, guitar, sort of rhythm section bass, but surrounded by an orchestra, um, also with the vision is for a 50 to 100 voice choir,
Wow.
and then for the visual, even in the backdrop, um, there'll be like a video screen.
Mhm.
So it's like an all sensory. Uh, the only way I could close it if I gave everybody ice cream that would include all the senses. But um,
Yeah.
but the point is like you're getting this sensory thing,
Multi-sensory
visual,
experience. Yeah.
sound, and I'm actually currently working on a Christmas record, um, and once again, I believe God is going to provide the funding for that as well. But
Yeah.
it's going to be the first release for the Orchestra of Light. So those I did featuring Orchestra of Light to sort of put the idea out, that hey, look out for this brand. But
Yeah.
that's something that's coming out really soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I'm excited. And I feel like this record as well, it felt like you maybe had, well, I don't know if you had maybe slightly more space because you had more tracks, but there was like a few features and like
Yeah.
can you talk to me a little bit about some of the features of the people you got on the record? Because not just Kim, there's like Shonda Love, there's like a few different people. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Chanda Rule, she's somebody I worked with on. Okay, there's another composer that does sacred arts, which is like Christian or gospel based artistic music. His name's Ike Sturm. Um, he is a friend, like a kindred brother. So we've only met as of late, but as soon as we met, it was like we've known each other for 20 years or something. It's weird.
Mm.
Um, Based out of the New York area, and um, he brought me in to sing baritone in his on his record that's coming out soon, and that's where I met Chanda, and she was like a featured artist, and I just heard her voice. As you probably could hear, there's such a clarity to it.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe her voice, man. It was just something I needed on my record. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And so, while we were recording, we would take breaks with the choir and the strings there. And, while everybody getting their coffee or whatever they're getting, I was just, we were introduced, and I said, I would love for you to sing. And she was so gracious to do that. And then there's Christy DeShell, who I've heard
Yeah.
her name from so many people in the jazz community. And it so happens the guy that I had sort of contract my choir, he teaches at the same university that she teaches at, Howard University in Washington, D.C. And so he's like, "Oh yeah, I got her know. I can hook her up, hook it up." And so he gave me her number. She was so gracious to do a vocal on here. And then there's an artist named Graciela uh, Lachowi, who um, who I met via Instagram. She did like a cover of one of my songs from a previous record, and I'm like, "Whoa, we gotta work together." Um,
Right.
and so, and I ended up producing a single for her. And then, a couple years later, I came back around like, "Hey, would you mind singing something for me?" And she was so gracious to do it. Her, I'm just grateful for all these voices because they all have, um, they're all, if you're an artist, I guess they're like really vibrant colors.
Yeah.
Kim has a vibrant color. Chanda, Graciela, Christy the show. I'm thinking, who else am I leaving out? Oh, Trina Thirby. Trina, who sang on the song Power.
Yeah.
Trina, I met her via Instagram as well. She did a cover of one of my songs, and I'm like, who is this? And man, she so she surprised me with her range because she has a wide range, but the stuff that I was asking her to sing was like an octave above what I was trying to articulate to her. So she sent me a version, and I was like, "You mind singing this up an octave?" And I was expecting some pushback, like, "I don't think so." When I say she sang all through that, and she added, oh gosh, she added so much nuance to the song that I had not planned on. Like I said, I need you to sing from here to here, here to here, and here to here. She added a little bit in between, and I did not take it away because it was
Right.
so tasteful. And she's somebody I already told her like when I do this thing live, um, I
Okay.
want her. I want her with me. Yeah.
See, I'm so glad you said that because that was gonna
Uh
be my question, right? Because I'm like, okay, there's all these tracks, and I'm like, is this gonna be like Singers Unlimited where we never get it live? It's just a
uh,
record. Like, how do
you
like
know, so my from a live standpoint, my biggest passion is the orchestra of light thing.
okay,
And I'm still working on because that with an orchestra choir video backdrop, it's taken some sponsorship to.
yeah,
So I'll put that out there. If there's anyone looking to sponsor a show,
please,
um,
please.
I I I need some help on that. But for the smaller show, I've been working on lately after the record's been released. Um, Putting together, who would be in the band, who would be singing backgrounds, who would be, what that would look like. And I think I'm coming together with um, something that I look forward to touring with, this year. Probably starting in the States, but I'd love to um, come that away.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Please.
and share the music. So right now, I'm looking at cities where streaming is the highest when I look at analytics,
Yeah.
because I would like to um, at least have some return on investment when it comes to ticket sales. I don't want to book a show somewhere and it's a quarter of the room is
Yeah,
packed. So I'm
for
looking at
sure.
yeah, I'm looking at cities to where I think there's better success of having more support. But by all means, I'd love to take this everywhere. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So it can be done live because I'm like, I don't know, we cloning you? What's the
Well,
what's
it's gonna
the
be a mix. It's gonna be a mix of songs from this one, from Just Wanna Say, from and the Prey record. So it'll be a
yeah,
mix of songs that sort of fit this format of a band.
that's cool. Well, you know what? We should definitely talk. I feel like there's some ways we could hit that up, man. Like, let's definitely let's definitely talk. But man,
I'm
I
down.
appreciate your time so much. I know we've gone like super, super overtime. I have just one last question. This is my
Sure.
last question, and it's a funny one. So, Be Alright off that the first record, Just Wanna Say, right? So I don't know if you feel like I do about so this is my so my wife was like, "Can you ask her about I'm like, "Can you ask her
Yeah.
about this?" I'm like, I know what I'm like, "Do you love Crash Cut?" I feel like you might.
So I
I
absolutely
knew
love
it.
some Crash Cut.
I knew it.
Yes, yes. That's funny that that's the song that you ask about. That was I put songs like that. Even on this last record, songs like Act a Mess and songs like Take Your Own Advice.
Yes.
Those
Big
songs sort of
band kinda.
yeah, I use them as icebreakers because whatever I
Yes.
sang before that can be a little heavy. So um heavy in thought and content. And so I wanted to put songs on there every now and sprinkle them through that sort of break things up a little bit and maybe get you in frame for the next song, which may be lighter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I
But it's also being authentic because my wife will tell you I'm extremely goofy. And so like I just believe in being myself. I believe in when things are serious, let's deal with it seriously. When
Mm,
things are jovial, when things are melancholy, because these are all human emotions that we all feel. I
range.
know I do. And so
Yeah.
why can't we have fun um and be goofy on a record? What? Because the industry says we can't sell. That's why I don't care about the industry. Like
Yeah.
I want to do it as it comes and let's have fun doing it.
I love that, man. I love that.
Yeah.
And shout out to your wife as well. Your wife played strings on the record, right?
So she and I, the record's been in process for like 3.5 years. She and I
Yeah.
started dating uh 2 years ago, and then we recently got married a little over a month ago now, month and a half
Oh,
ago.
wow. I was like,
Yeah,
super oh, congrats, man. Oh,
yeah,
you
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So she played on the last song I did with strings, which is the hardest one, River. At the
Yeah.
end there, that was probably one of the hardest things I put in front of string players because it's all over the place with
Yeah.
16th, it's all sort of all over the place. And
Yeah.
so she was on that session, and you can assure she will be on everything else coming out.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But
Of
she's
course.
she's a beast in her own right. God bless me to have one Grammy. She has three.
Yeah.
um she's worked with everybody in the industry, and it's a blessing for me to be working on an orchestra score, and I get caught up doing something. I say, babe, can you finish this for me? And she'll finish the
Yeah.
score, and vice versa. She'll be working on something, and if she gets too busy, she tosses it to me, and we've been working together, and we even put together a company called Omnia Session Strings,
Mm.
and based out of Atlanta, Nashville, New York, and LA. And where when an artist comes and says, we want strings, whether it's a trio or a full orchestra, we
Mm.
contract them. We'll do the arrangement if need be. We'll, We'll do stems for touring artists. And so we've done quite a bit of that. And it's basically us taking our clientele and putting it together and sort of working that way. So yeah.
That makes so much sense. No, I mean,
Yeah.
well, I mean, sorry, the last question. You just dropped in that Grammy. What was that Grammy for? I just, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, there's an artist named Jay Ivy. He's a poet out of
Yes,
LA.
on
Yeah.
that, because I
And
know from the Kanye, I guess everyone knows him from the Kanye Never Let Me Down record.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I did she and I did string arrangements on that record and did some production, and so we got a Grammy for being producers on it.
amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
I love the mesh. Well, Hamilton, thank you so much for your time, man.
Absolutely.
Really, really, really appreciate it. Guys, if you don't have it, please go and get Filled with Wonder right now. And when I say go get it, I don't just mean stream it, download it and buy it from, is it on Bandcamp and all those kind of
Yeah.
places? Like,
Yeah,
please,
all the streaming platforms, yeah.
please go stream that, go buy that. But yeah, Hamilton, thank you so much. Really, really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time, and it's been amazing. And hopefully when the next record comes out, when the Christmas record comes out, we'll have another conversation.
Hey, it's done deal. Done deal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
All right, thank you.